We tell children don't talk to strangers because we as a humanity know that adults and children are at different levels.
When Alice logged onto Omegle at the age of 11, she had no idea that she would be matched with a paedophile.
He had ill intentions, evil intentions. I was consistently being forced to do things that a child should not have to do.
Omegle is a hunting ground for predators.
Anytime that I've been on Omegle, a very high percentage of it is for a sexual purpose.
There is 100% definitely a dark side to Omegle.
Omegle is quoted in dozens of cases against predators the world over, but now Alice is fighting back.
This will be the first case that is against a social media company. We're holding them liable for their own product operations.
No comment, but feel free to email us questions.
For years, the site's elusive owner has ignored calls for change. Can we finally track him down? Mr. Brooks, we just want to ask you some questions. It's about your website, Mr. Brooks. It's about Omegle.
I was really just like any other child. I was always a student. Everything on my marks from teachers was always about how I was so sociable and pleasure to have in class. I think I lived a relatively normal, happy childhood.
How did you first learn about this website?
I learned through friends. People went on it as sort of a game of sorts.
What, like in a group
Social
situation,
setting.
like
Yes.
slumber parties, that kind of thing?
Yes, a social setting, slumber parties type thing, and then discovered it more on my own as I kind of got older. A lot of people knew about it, but nobody knew the harm that it was doing.
Omegle is a free website, and it basically lets you match with anyone across the world, completely across the world. They could be from the US, they could be from Canada, they could be from Mexico.
19-year-old Fabio makes popular videos about Omegle.
Hey, that is a YouTuber.
YouTube, yeah, I'm a YouTuber.
He's got more than 500,000 followers across social media platforms, with fans tuning in to watch his edgy pranks and sometimes controversial chats on the site.
You can have a conversation with them, and if at any point you no longer want to continue the conversation, all you have to do is press one button and that's it, they're gone.
The site has been a notorious place for random encounters for mostly teenagers for over a decade. During the pandemic, it exploded in popularity, with videos about it going viral on TikTok and YouTube. It's remained popular since, and in fact has grown to around 73 million visits a month, according to analysts at SEMrush. Around 15 million people from India are logging on a month, 13 million in the US, and millions of others are visiting from Mexico, the UK, and Australia. Omegle is free and was launched in 2009 by 18-year-old Leif Brooks. It started off as just text, then introduced video in 2011. It makes money through advertising, mostly for porn websites.
There is 100% definitely a dark side to Omegle. It does get very weird, especially late at night. Things I've personally seen is, it's just men pleasuring themselves, playing with themselves on there. They just do it where they know that there's young girls on there, young boys on there. The site is moderated, but I don't really know what's going on half the time, to be honest. It gets crazy.
The dark side to Omegle is well documented. I carried out an investigation into the site and witnessed 2 prepubescent boys masturbating in 2021. The report led to calls from the United Nations for changes to the site. 2 years earlier, a paedophile from rural Canada called Ryan Fordyce was convicted after police discovered he'd been using Omegle to find victims.
I located an IP address out of Brandon that was sharing these child sexual abuse materials, and then I was able to get a search warrant so that I could search his home. We knew that he was coming home for lunch, and when he came home, I had found the materials at that point, and I advised him that he was under arrest for accessing and distributing child pornography. He was surprised. His wife was surprised as well. He had two kids, teenagers.
Fordyce had 7 folders on his computer, all with a different girl's name. One of them was called Alice. It contained 220 images and videos of her when she was between 11 and 14, including of her masturbating and urinating.
I spent a huge chunk of my childhood in this, being forced to do things that a child should not have to do. Every day, being at the will of someone else who had the worst of intentions with children.
So with Alice, I had no idea where in the world she was. She could have been anywhere. She could have been in Australia. She could have been in the UK. She could have been in Canada. And I found pictures of her in front of a certain landmark in the United States. And I also found another picture of her where she was wearing an outfit from school that had the initials of the school and a logo on the shirt. And I was able to reach out to the law enforcement agency there, and they were able to find her.
Felt like the world froze and everything stopped, and my parents crumbling to the ground like any parent would.
Ryan Fordyce was sentenced to 8 years in prison. It was discovered that he'd used Omegle to meet 3 of his victims, including Alice. His playbook was similar in each case: get matched at random with a child, groom them and convince them to hand over private details so that he could carry on talking to them on messaging apps.
Often I was sent back to, in a sense, recruit more, as if it was a cult.
Recruit more children?
More children.
So you were a child, you were 12, 13 or something, and he would say, I want you to go back on
And find more.
and find more.
I was consistently trying to fake information, fake the content, to not put anyone else through what I was going through.
What sort of things was he saying to you to try and persuade you that you had no choice?
That this was all my fault. And I think, unfortunately, so many children have been in this position, will be in this position, as long as there's not active change.
Alice is suing Omegle in a landmark case against a social media company. She's hired a New York law firm that's known for going after tech giants. Hello.
Hey.
Hi. How you doing? I'm Joe.
Our case is so much about Alice and her abuser, but for every one Fordyce, we can assume that there are hundreds and thousands of more of him.
Omegle is a hunting ground for predators. It invites children and adults to be matched randomly and privately and anonymously for chatting.
What would you say to people who think that it's up to parents to stop their children going on websites like this?
I would say they're wrong. I would say that there's absolutely no way that anybody can account for their child's use of technology 24/7. More so, Omegle, people don't know about Omegle. Parents don't know what this is. And it quite literally encourages them to, quote unquote, talk to strangers.
Alice's suit, known as AM versus Omegle, is likely to be one of, if not the first time, a tech platform is put on trial for the way it's built. These so-called product liability lawsuits are a growing trend and a potential new way for social networks to be held accountable for their alleged wrongdoings.
In the last year, there have been over 100 cases filed against Meta, Snap, YouTube, TikTok, and they're all product liability cases. Alice's case has been really, really instrumental in arguing for these other platforms to be liable. It's like everyone's waiting for
Everyone's
this outcome.
watching the Alice case. And it's not just legal circles watching the case closely. Child protection agencies have repeatedly called for changes to be made to Omegle, but have been ignored.
I can tell you that the analysts upstairs, they see content related to Omegle about 20 times a week on average. One way offenders like to entice these children is kind of by playing a game. Could be 1 point for waving at the camera or smiling, and then it gets more and more kind of severe. So it'll be blow a kiss, flash your breasts, flash your bottom, masturbate again, put your fingers inside yourself, and it can get more and more extreme.
We found this Omegle sex game being shared online. Its creator did not respond to our questions. Omegle has been cited as a tool for predators in dozens of charges and convictions of paedophiles. In the last 2 years alone, it's quoted in 50 cases we found. There are cases in Spain, Argentina, Australia, France, 4 in the UK, more than 20 in the US. That's just in the last couple of years. And it's not just Omegle that's mentioned on these charge sheets, of course. There are other platforms like Snapchat that frequently come up. But if you think about the size of Snapchat, hundreds of millions of users a month, compared to that of Omegle, tens of millions of users a month, it does seem that this website is disproportionately problematic. I've asked Leif Brooks for an interview multiple times in the past 2 years. He's never accepted. So we travelled to Florida to try to speak to him directly. It's this persistent problem it has with predators. That's what I want to talk to him about, and that's what I've been trying to organise an interview about ever since I started looking into it. And then it's sadly come to this. After the first door knock was ignored, we waited nearly 7 hours to see if he would emerge. Mr. Brooks? Mr. Brooks? Can we ask you some questions, please? From the BBC. Mr. Brooks, we just want to ask you some questions. It's about your website, Mr. Brooks. It's about Omegle. We want to know why you're not protecting children, Mr. Brooks. We tried. We've come all the way here, tried to have a civilised conversation with him. He doesn't want to talk. He never wants to talk. Mr. Brooks did reply to an email. He said people are solely responsible for their own behaviour while using his website, but that Omegle takes the safety of users extremely seriously. He said the site is moderated by AI tools and human moderators. He also says he works with law enforcement and organisations working to stop the online exploitation of children.
Everyday things remind me of what I've been through. This platform has allowed abuse that carries through a lifetime.
Days after we spoke to Alice, her lawsuit took another big step forward. Her lawyers convinced the judge to dismiss a motion from Omegle to throw out the case. A trial date could soon be set. Meanwhile, Carrie and her team say they've been contacted by 2 other families, which say their children were groomed on Omegle in the last year.